Most people are familiar with joss sticks, masala sticks, and incense cones, but there are many other forms of incense. The shape of your incense really is only limited by your imagination. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make fun and practical circles of incense. That's right now on this episode of Incense Magic. You can shape incense with all sorts of kitchen tools. Cookie cutters, pastry tools, and other items already in your kitchen can really contribute to your incense making workshop. Now, for this project, you can use a rolling pin and biscuit cutters right out of your kitchen. Actually, any round cookie cutter should work just fine. To make circles, you will need two round cutters, one that's slightly smaller than the other. If you only have one round cutter, you can't make circles. You can make incense discs or medallions, but that's a project for a different video. And many biscuit cutters come in sets with a variety of diameters. The larger cutter will determine the outside diameter of the circle, while the smaller cutter will determine the inner diameter. And to make an incense circle, start by making your incense dough just as you would for rolling cones. Roll the dough out flat to whatever thickness you desire. Thick circles take longer to dry and they're harder to light, but they burn slower. Thin ones will burn much faster. Whenever you roll incense dough flat, much like with bread dough, you might have issues with the dough sticking to your rolling surface or to the rolling pin. Just as with bread dough, there are a couple of tactics you can use to combat this. One is to roll your incense onto wax paper, aluminum foil, or plastic wrap. Because it's so thin, plastic wrap might not be the best choice for this particular project, but use it if you don't have anything else available. Another approach is to dust your work surface with a small amount of incense powder or just plain wood powder. I always use the same wood powder that I've put in my incense blend. You only want a very light dusting. Otherwise, you could dry out the dough or even change the scent slightly. With a light dusting, you can roll the dough, but still easily move it without it sticking. Whichever technique you use, try not to press the dough too hard while you're rolling it. Using a light hand will make it much easier to lift from the work surface. And once you've rolled the dough flat, use the larger of your round cutters to cut the outside of the circle. Also, just as with biscuits, you can cut several at once if you have enough dough. Once the outside diameter is cut, you can use the smaller cutter to cut the inside of the circle. Once both of those cuts are made, peel away that center part of the circle and then anything that's outside the outer part. Now that scrap dough can be used to make other forms of incense, or you can add a little more water to it and roll the dough back out flat and make more circles. Now, if you roll your dough onto wax paper, aluminum foil, or plastic wrap, always peel that away before you dry it. If you have trouble peeling it off, try placing it in your freezer for 15 or 30 minutes, and then you should be able to peel the circle off without distorting the shape at all. Although you can leave the circle as a completely closed loop, it's much easier to light if you cut a small wedge out of the circle while the dough is still wet. Dry your circles slowly. Either dry them on a screen or keep them covered until they're dry. If you don't, they'll dry unevenly and they'll warp. They'll still smell fine, but it's difficult to add aromatics on top, as you'll see here in a moment, if they aren't truly flat. Now, once dry, you can light the circle and you can enjoy the scent you've created. The wide circular form, though, also allows you to augment that incense by adding ingredients right on top of the burning circle. Now, some people like to make charcoal circles instead of an incense blend. They then use the charcoal circle just like a charcoal tablet, but they're able to place various aromatics onto the circle, which will then burn as the circle burns. But it won't burn the aromatic until the burning point of the circle reaches there. Now, when lighting your circle, you can light one end of the gap or the other. Which end you light and how you place it in your censer will determine if it will burn clockwise or counterclockwise. Of course, you could burn both ends at the same time if you wanted. Your circle will burn best on a bed of white ash, which isn't really ash, or on a bed of actual ash. You might be able to burn it using a coil incense holder. You can even try setting it on a couple of metal washers or coins, but white ash is always going to be your best choice. I love charcoal circles. I like them far more than charcoal tablets. If you're worried about resins or other aromatics running off of your circle while they're burning, you can use a pin or another small object to make impressions along the surface of your circles while they're still wet. Then when the resins melt, they'll run into those impressions rather than off and onto the ash. Well, that's all there is to it. If you don't have a set of biscuit cutters, I sell circle cutters on my website. And that's all the time we have for in this video. If you've enjoyed it, I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel. I also hope that you will come visit my website, theincensedragon.com. I not only sell circle cutters, but charcoal powder and other ingredients for you to make your own perfect circle. Until next time, bright blessings.